So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to session two of the IRF 2025 annual conference, a session that we have titled Safer and Healthier Roads for People and the Planet. And it's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for joining us from across the world on this defining topic. At the International Road Federation, our mission has always been centered on advancing safer road systems through our programs, whether we're helping agencies review their road design standards or delivering training to their staff. We work to translate the safe system into policy guidance and practical tools for countries at every stage of development. This session sits squarely within that mission. Roads are not just transport assets. They are an enabler of public health strategies, shaping not just safety, but also air quality, equity, and the everyday experience of many communities. Despite this, road crashes still claim well over 1 million lives each year, with countless more seriously injured. It could also be argued, as we've heard in fact in the previous session, that unsafe roads make it less likely that citizens will switch to active modes of transport. And as we heard from George Yanis, our distinguished personality of the year, earlier today, 70% of Athens' road fatalities are comprised of pedestrians and cyclists. Addressing these challenges together, safety and health, requires integrated approaches that bring design, enforcement, education, and innovation into a single conversation, one that we are about to hear to have today. Today, we are particularly fortunate to have an exceptional group of speakers representing NGOs, industry, research, and global partnerships. I will not read their full bios, which are extensive, but let me briefly introduce them in the order they will speak. First, we'll hear from Greg Smith, CEO of IRAP, whose methodologies have guided over $100 billion of safer road investments worldwide. Followed by Patrick Kniandri, who is a regional coordinator for Africa at the Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety. We will then hear from Dmitry Sandberg, who is the Deputy Director General at EAST and Managing Director at the EAST Academy. Followed by Lorna Payne, business developer at ICE in Europe, focusing on next generation technologies, supporting safer, cleaner, and more efficient mobility. And last but not least, Dr. Youssef Al-Ansari, CEO of Vitronic Machine Vision Middle East, a company that is recognized for its pioneering innovations in enforcement and automated traffic technologies. We will begin with 5-minute opening presentations from each speaker, who've kindly agreed to limit the number of slides they will be sharing, before moving into a moderated discussion and questions from the audience. So I encourage you to send any questions through the Q&A feature, and we will address as many as time permits in the second half of the panel. So Greg, I believe we have volunteered you to open the proceedings. So without further ado, let's hear from IRAP.
Thanks very much, Brendan. And thank you, IRF, for putting on this event and all the attendees. I can see you from all around the world, so hello to you all. And also, I just want to say a thank you to the speakers in the previous sessions. It was super interesting hearing from the speakers about the equity angle, and I think there's a lot in that sort of overlaps with what we're going to be talking about as well. I think you'll be sharing my slides, Brendan, is that right? Perhaps you could put that up there.
I will indeed.
So yeah, to get started, I'm Greg from the International Road Assessment Program, or IRAP, as you'll see on the slide that's going to come up any minute now. Is that coming up?
It should be coming up. All right, perhaps let me try this again. Might be facing a small technical glitch. Please bear with me.
No problem.
Okay, I apologize. I think I figured out what I did wrong to begin with.
Okay, looking good.
Looking good. And let's move you into the correct view.
Thanks,
All right,
Brendan.
I apologize for that. Thank you.
No problem. Human error is a core part of what we're talking about here in road safety. So yeah, perhaps if you could jump to the next slide. So a little about IRAP. We're a charity that's operating around the world. and we've created tools and methodologies that are freely available for use by anyone that have become something of a global standard for road infrastructure safety assessments. They've been used in more than 100 countries around the world, and like Brendan said earlier, they've been used to help influence more than $100 billion of road investments around the world. But as a charity, apart from providing the tools and methodologies freely available, we support them with training, communications, and advocacy to support large-scale action. A core part of what we do is make those tools available for use by partners all around the world. And you can see some of the partners that we're fortunate to work with globally, including development banks, research institutes, NGOs. And down there in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see what we call the local road assessment program. So these are countries that have established their own road assessment programs, making use of the international tools in a local way. The most recent programs to have joined the RAP initiative is Nigeria RAP, just in the last week or so, but also not long before that, Senegal RAP and Kazakhstan RAP as well. So yeah, very excited to have those countries fully embracing the use of the IRAP tools. If you go to the next slide, please, Brendan. So with the tools, the core metric that can be produced is a star rating for the infrastructure-related safety of the roads. 1 star is the highest risk and 5 star is the lowest risk. What you can see in that chart on the right-hand side there is the percentages of roads that have been assessed around the world that are rated 3 stars out of 5, at best of total of 5, for each of the 4 different road user types: pedestrians, cyclists, powered 2 and 3 wheelers, and 4 wheelers or vehicles. This is a chart that was published in the World Health Organization Global Status Report. It covers a sample of data of about 500,000 kilometers of roads across about 80 countries. There's 2 key things that you can draw from that. Number one is there's not a large percentage of roads reaching that 3 stars out of 5 rating yet. So that's number one. There's room for improvement across all road user types. But there's also that very clear difference between the 4 wheelers and the vulnerable road users, the pedestrians, cyclists, and powered 2 and 3 wheelers. So about sort of twice as many roads are rated 3 stars or better for the vehicles than for the vulnerable road users. And that resonates quite well with the actual road death statistics. We know that particularly in developing countries, those pedestrians, cyclists, and powered 2 and 3 wheelers account for enormous percentages of the numbers of deaths. And it's not a coincidence that the road scores or the ratings for safety around the infrastructure in those cases is not very good as well. So in terms of the challenge, that lays it quite squarely about what can be done. It's very interesting to think about the data that underpins these star ratings as well. So just to give you a few examples, within this data set, about 7% of the roads have sidewalks where there's pedestrians present. So just 7%. So i.e. 93% of the roads where there's pedestrians present don't have a usable sidewalk in place. That's a metric that with even a little bit of adjustment, lifting that 7% to 15, 20, 25 would make dramatic improvements in terms of the numbers of deaths and serious injuries for pedestrians. We also know on about half of the roads, vehicles are traveling at about or higher than the posted speed limit. We also know that on about half of the roads that are 80 kilometers an hour or more, they're undivided. So the risk of head-on crash is quite high. Just to jump to the next page, Brendan. That sort of set out the challenge, but the problem, but the opportunity here is enormous. If we could get most travel happening on roads rated 3 stars or better, we estimate that there would be about 400,000 fewer deaths each year, saving about $1 trillion a year in terms of crash costs avoided. So very large social and economic benefits from investing in road networks. And we are seeing countries making very substantial progress on that. So that chart at the top is from very recent assessments that have happened in Uruguay that compared a key network in Uruguay from last year, from 2024, with what it looked like 10 years ago. And you can see a dramatic change. It's gone from 52% 3 stars or better up to 82% 3 stars or better. So reaching the global target of 75% of travel happening on 3 stars or better. And we know if you move a road from 1 star to 2 star, you get a dramatic improvement in reduction in risk and crash costs per vehicle kilometre travelled. So we have a very clear sort of understanding of the challenge in terms of infrastructure safety, but also very promising progress in terms of what can be achieved. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you, Greg, very much for setting the stage for us here, in particular through these hard-hitting metrics. And the topic of vulnerable road users is one that we'll be coming back to over and over again throughout today's presentation. I'll now call on Patrick, perhaps, to join us. Patrick, if you're with us, you're indeed fantastic.
Yes, I am here. Thank you so much.
Patrick, you're very welcome to begin.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for this invitation, and indeed, on behalf of my organization, which is the Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety, we are very pleased to join this annual conference. IRF has been our partners in various activities and initiatives, and it's a culmination of many things that we are happy to be here and also to share in this important topic of this year's annual conference. Just before we put on any slide that I may share, just to give, for the sake of our listeners and our viewers, the context about the Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety. We are a collection of non-governmental organizations that implement programs and advocate for safer roads. And this is done globally around the world. Our members are NGOs, are most road safety NGOs, and they are often set up by everyday citizens that respond to the needs they see around them in their communities. We know that these NGOs are normally, they are the people, they are the voices, they are the ears, the eyes on the ground that really are able to bring out the challenges that are existing within the communities. And therefore, they are in a position to fill gaps, the government gaps, by providing immediate solutions that are actually that may not require too much of investment or a lot of planning. They are simple things that are almost common sense. They can also influence the decision makers to make actual big policies, and in terms of advocacy and education. So as a network organization currently having over 400 NGOs globally in over 105 countries, our mission basically is make sure that we advocate for effective actions that strengthen accountability for safe mobility using the road system and support NGOs to do the same. So we do this to accelerate implementation that results in reduction of road crash victims. So in our work, therefore, and the relevance of our topic today, we do three main things. One is like what we are doing today, making sure we are helping our NGOs to build strong networks within themselves and other partners and stakeholders. And the growing in size is very important because also numbers and or rather big numbers also matter. Also making sure that the NGOs have credibility, they create partnerships, and that open opportunities for all the members and increasing number of members. As the network grows, the community demand for road safety also grow globally. Now, we do this and make sure that we are advocating for the advocacy for the NGOs is well coordinated, and therefore we lead global coordinated campaigns that are locally implemented to advocacy actions that are proven to save lives and make our streets safe for everyone. In order for us to really get impact of what NGOs are doing and to make sure that they have quality, they're doing quality advocacy, we do a lot of capacity building. And for my sharing today, I want to focus on a very recent capacity building initiative that we took that provided with other partners a very important tool that has been able to actually create advocacy with impact. And this tool is called the Accountability Toolkit. which was launched back in 2022 and has been implementation with NGOs actually showing the impact of actually using the toolkit. So if you go to my first slide, Greg, first slide, yes. So on your screen, what you see is basically a framework of what we are working with the NGOs in order to really bring out advocacy with impact. And what we realized over years with judging from the NGOs, local needs, the contextual challenges, is that when we speak of advocacy, we often focus on passion, urgency, and vision, but we realize that passion alone is not enough. For effective advocacy, it requires accountability. And therefore, the concept of accountability is so strong. And we have seen over the years that accountability to our communities, to our partners, to the global commitments is very important for sustainable development goals. So today, therefore, I will just briefly say that the Global Alliance Accountability Toolkit has helped us translate accountability into action, advocating for safer streets, and specifically for what we call priority interventions, which one of it is what the Professor Yanis said about 30-kilometer speed limit. So we have done this in several countries recently, and this is a part of the success I would like to share, and also to give a vision for what we are looking at in the future. This toolkit brings about the essence of accountability, and also it provides structured guidance for NGOs to plan, implement, and evaluate advocacy campaigns. And as I said, recently, some 7 NGOs were able to actually implement the toolkit under close mentorship and a lot of capacity building from the Alliance. And we have had some, for the first time, very clear impacts or results for what they were doing using the toolkit. So what we are doing now in terms of scaling up the use of the toolkit is that local NGOs now have a structured way of doing campaigns with confidence, using evidence rather than emotion alone. We have seen several national governments, municipalities, and city governments adopting, for example, 30-kilometer per hour zones, protecting children on their way to school. We have grassroots organizations growing credible voices, influencing national safety strategies. We have seen countries like Tanzania, Uganda, where we are having NGOs on the table on the decision-making process. And this has been quite an achievement in terms of how NGOs are advocating and using accountability. But more so, I'd like to sort of end this part by saying that the accountability for effective advocacy for the Global Alliance is not only about policy change, but it's about empowering, ensuring that every NGO, from the smallest grassroots group to the largest coalition, they have the right tools, they are having right mentorship, and the confidence to deliver measurable change. So in our recent achievement in advocating for that kilometer per hour zones in 7 countries, in my last slide, we can see some of the outcomes that are there. As we continue to push for that kilometer limits and safer streets, we want to remember about accountability is not a burden as such, but our greatest strength, not only as NGOs, but every partner here represented. It allows us to look communities actually right in the eye and say, we promised this and we have delivered. So I would like to end later maybe my closing remark, but just to know that we are very passionate about lowering speeds as one of our Alliance priority interventions. And we know that lower speeds, integrating low speeds in mobility and with climate and smart urban design, all these create safer and green sort of cities with grassroots NGOs, local governments, and communities, helps to co-design and prioritize what areas are needed most by the communities, what the communities can actually see change in and be able to reflect that in their communities.
Thank you, Patrick. And I think we all here recognize the essential capillary role this civil society plays in advancing the UN Decade of Action. And it's great to see that your toolkits will strengthen their effectiveness and ultimately their impact. So congratulations. And we now switch regions of the world with Dimitri. I can see you've turned on your camera, and we are now going to hear about the essential work conducted by East. Dimitri, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to join you all and to join this wonderful panel today. I'm really, really honored to be able to share with you our thoughts and our experiences from our region, as Brendan said, on this very important topic. Because for us, it's all about everyday journeys, making journeys safe, and also how small changes can completely reshape the safety and well-being of local communities. My next slide, please. So carrying on from Greg's and Patrick's presentations, EAST is also a charity and NGO. We are a network of local road safety organizations working across 14 countries, as you can see on this map. So our local partners, they know their community really well. They know most dangerous intersections. They know black spots in the cities. They also know schools where parents raise concerns and where parents feel unsafe about their kids going to and back from school every morning and every afternoon. So together we work to try to make travel safer, greener, and more sustainable for all our future generations. So this regional partnership is our strength, I would say, and this is why we can deliver real change on the ground. Next slide, please. Challenges, well, across the region, the challenges are often the same, and I'm sure many of you came across similar challenges in your parts of the world. It's fast-growing cities, it's aging infrastructure, outdated road building designs, limited budgets, and most of all, it's streets that design around vehicles, that design for car users, but not for people. And these aren't just technical issues. These things, they shape how people behave. So when streets feel dangerous, when people rush, they take risks, and obviously they make unsafe choices. And for us, these issues, they affect how safe children feel walking to school and from school, you know, how confidently people move around their cities. So these are the challenges that we see every day in our region. Next slide, please. But the good news is that the solutions are practical, they're affordable. When we first assessed this location in Bishkek near schools number 8 and schools number 48 and 61, we saw speeding, we saw poor visibility, we saw narrow pavements, a very broad streets, you know, almost 3-line each way. So children and pedestrians would run, they would hesitate, they would take risks because, you know, the environment pushed them to make these unsafe choices. But after some simple improvements, and you see it on this slide on the right-hand side, you know, better markings, improved access, adding a pedestrian island in this instance, everything changed. You know, suddenly this crossing looked as it should be. Children crossed safely, you know, cars were slowing down, local people started to feel safer, and parents as well. They reported an increased confidence about their kids' school journeys. So the journey becomes safer, therefore people walk more, and you know, as a byproduct of it all, air quality improves as well. So when speeds are low, we know the crossings are visible. When pavements are protected, you know, people instinctively act more carefully and more confidently. So for us, we think that infrastructure sets the tone for how we should act on the road. And I guess one of my main takeaways for you from our region is that a safe environment can shape safer behavior. And this is why design often matters as much as the education and enforcement. So it links back to our wider theme of this panel. Safe roads are healthy roads. So they cut emissions, they encourage walking, we know, and they make local communities more livable and more safer. So every time we redesign a street or intersection, we're not just changing the roads. I think at least we believe that we're also changing human behavior for the better, and that leads to the overall goal, which is make travel and roads safer for everyone. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Dimitri, and we will be indeed addressing a number of questions linked to your presentations. Again, thank you for highlighting how relatively straightforward and cost-effective changes to the designs of the streets are, influencing the behaviour of all road users, whether pedestrians or motorists. In our next two presentations, we will start focusing on some technological enablers that can further assist us on the path towards this 50% target by 2030. Our next speaker, Lorna Payne from ACEN Europe, who I briefly introduced earlier on, and who I will now invite to the stage.
Great. Thank you very much, Brendan. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm pleased to join the panel today and talk from a little bit of a different angle. So I come from the automotive industry, a company called ACEN, and we've developed an offering that's trying to bring automotive and highways closer together, which is called Road Trace. So you can go to the next slide, please, Brendan. So ACEN has a long-standing role in road safety, of course, but particularly starting with the automotive side. So for decades, we've been driving safety-critical automotive systems, so producing and designing transmissions, braking and steering systems, and then more in-vehicle safety solutions, often software-led, such as intelligent speed assist and driver monitoring systems. So, the cameras that keep an eye on driver faces to monitor for drowsiness and distraction. But we're trying to move through the safe system from not just working on safe vehicles, safe speeds through intelligent speed assist, as I said, safe road users by helping drivers to drive in a more safe manner, but more towards now to the infrastructure side. So what we've been doing over the last 4 years is developing data insights from connected vehicles to try to give you some more insight into how people are driving on your road networks. So that can be really, I think, helpful for road operators. If you know better how people are driving, where people are driving, where are the risky hotspots, then I think that can empower you to prioritize limited funds and make decisions. So what I'm going to be focusing on briefly today is the work that we've been doing in predictive road safety. So we've been using connected vehicle data, particularly focusing on harsh braking. So if you can imagine, if collectively and systematically lots of people are slamming on the brakes at the same point in the network, then that suggests that there's some aggravating factor from the infrastructure and possibly weather conditions as well. So that's the type of work we've been looking at. So yes, please do go to the next slide. So a couple of examples. So these are from the UK. So a couple of different examples. Firstly, looking at A roads, which are more main roads, but as you can see in the UK can be quite narrow and quite dangerous by nature. So in this particular study we did for Calderdale, which is a region in the UK, they wanted us to analyze give them the hotspots, if you like, the most dangerous driving spots across their network to help them to prioritize. And one of the hotspots came out as this first example you can see on the screen. And so actually this came as an example that we produced using our own connected vehicle data, but they would have already heard about this hotspot because they were actually getting complaints from citizens and residents at this area who were saying, oh, people are driving dangerously, people are speeding. So we were able to provide them an evidence-based approach to understand whether that was really true and founded or whether it was rather based on citizens' perceptions of what was happening. And if you look at the table, you can see that it's quite fascinating, this collective cluster of harsh braking. You can see that the start speed of the harsh braking events was 28 miles per hour, whereas the speed limit is 20 miles per hour. So you're really looking at an overspeeding situation. And then at particularly harsh braking, deceleration rates of nearly 0.5 Gs. And so start speed on average 28, end speed of the harsh braking 6. that's really people slamming on the brakes on this road. And as you can see, a lot of it's happening at the rush hour, people rushing to get to work and in the rain. So we were able to empower the local authority to understand whether there was really an underlying problem or not, which can then help them to position their traffic calming measures. And then the other interesting thing with connected vehicle data is you can come in afterwards, and once the traffic calming or other infrastructure changes have been implemented, you can very quickly monitor whether that's had the desired effect on the drivers or not. So that's another plus for the local authorities. The second example on the screen, as you can see, is a more urban area. So that's an area of London. And here we're really touching the vulnerable road user type situation. So you can see that we're trying to analyze areas of conflict, potential conflict between drivers and vulnerable road users. So here, people are driving in a dangerous way right near pedestrian crossings and cycle lanes. There's already been one KSI, so this is empowering the local authority to understand that more actions are needed if we want to avoid further injuries and deaths at this area. Thank you. Sorry, I can go to the next slide. So just finally, just a few thoughts. What we've been working on is really trying to bring an integrated approach to data. So a lot of authorities have different needs, so we have to be aware of the differing needs, but we're trying to bring all the data in one place across silos, so safety, mobility, asset management, whether it's speed, traffic flows, driving behavior, and comparing that, overlaying it with road condition data, and matching desired outcomes with technology and data. So I think the most important thing is to understand what are your needs, what are your gaps in terms of data, and where can we help to try and fill those gaps. And we can also ingest customer data as well, so that we're really pulling the picture together in one place. And final word, the ultimate goal on our side is to get highways information and information on risky areas and also vulnerable road user presence back to the drivers in the cockpit. So I think we have some quite ambitious targets on closing that loop and making roads safer, working on all levels. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorna, and your contact details just there. Lorna, thank you for that. You made, I think, a very powerful case. This predictive analytics, when combined with sound insights into asset management, really combined to offer, I think, one of the most promising fields of investigation, new fields of investigation for road agencies today. You mentioned speed. I think all of the other panelists mentioned speed, and I think it's fitting that we revisit this topic with our final speaker. I see a couple of hands raised, but please use the Q&A function. That's the best way to get your questions to us. And in the meanwhile, I'll invite Yusuf perhaps to join me on the stage for his presentation. Apologies. There you go. Yusuf.
Hi, good evening, everyone from Dubai. Thanks, Brendan, and thanks to the IRF for inviting me. I'm representing Vetronic, a German group of companies specialized in traffic management and traffic enforcement. So next slide. Today, I want to challenge a common assumption about speed cameras. So are they revenue generators targeting reckless drivers or something else entirely? Our analysis of modern traffic violations patterns reveals something surprising. So speed cameras are primarily functioning as an educational tool and not a punishment mechanism. So the data shows that the vast majority of violations are committed not by dangerous drivers, but by ordinary responsible drivers experiencing a lack of attention. This insight fundamentally changes how we should view speed enforcement. So let's move to slide number 2. So, and here's the evidence. So look at this distribution. So 42% of violations occur within just 1 to 5 kilometers per hour over the limit. So add to the next category, which is 6 to 10 kilometers per hour, and that's another 36%. It means that 78% of all speed violations happen within 10 kilometers per hour of the post limit. So now look at the other end. serious violations over 30 kilometers per hour is just 1%. So what does this mean? So these are not reckless drivers, definitely. These are people who use their phones maybe, or adjusted their radio, or simply lost focus for a moment. So the small margins prove this. Someone deliberately speeding goes much faster than 3 or 5 kilometers per hour over the speed limit. So this patterns reveals destruction and inattention and not intentional risk-taking. So let's move to slide number 3. Thank you. So what's the real function of speed cameras? And those are 3 key points. First, raising awareness. When a camera captures these marginal violations, the fine provides a feedback. Drivers realize, oh, I lost focus and I need better speed awareness. This is a driver education in action, making people conscious of attention lapses they didn't even notice. Secondly, developing responsibility. So enforcement at a minor threshold trains drivers to monitor their speed more carefully. Over time, they internalize limits, check speedometers more often, and recognize when they are likely to lose focus. This is how to bring drivers back to their maturity. A third, it's about long-term safety impact. So by addressing destruction-based violations early, we prevent escalation to more dangerous patterns. A driver who learns better speed awareness is less likely to develop a serious speeding behaviors. So what we have to say is speed cameras function as continuous driver education tools, promoting attentive and responsible driving behavior. So they are not catching criminals, they're just teaching responsible citizens to drive with greater awareness and maturity. Thank you so much.
Youssef, thank you for that. And I think it's telling that in the UK in particular, they're not designated as speed cameras, they're designated as safety cameras. And I think that your presentation, I think, makes that case very eloquently. Let me stop sharing my screen and perhaps invite all the speakers, all our esteemed panelists back on stage. And meanwhile, please do share your questions through the Q&A box. And in the meanwhile, I will get started perhaps on a couple of cross-cutting issues that some of our speakers raised. Greg and Patrick, you're very welcome to open your cameras as well. Some of my first questions will, in fact, be directed to you. So we'll start with perhaps Greg and Dimitri. As you know, our today's session emphasized health as well as safety outcomes. And, you know, from your vantage point, I think it's helpful to kind of maybe re-emphasize perhaps the co-benefits of safer roads, and perhaps how some of the tools you discussed, from risk mapping to traffic calming measures, you know, support this process, particularly as we now move towards the upcoming UN decade of sustainable transport. So can you tell us a little bit maybe about these kind of co-benefits that safer roads offer? Greg, perhaps if you'd like to begin.
Sure. So, I mean, yeah, it's super interesting that the decade of sustainable transport is about to begin just in a few days. In fact, the implementation plan will be released. I mean, I think the first thing to say is that you know, a sustainable transport system by definition is safe. Like, if we have people dying or being seriously injured on a transport system, it's by definition not sustainable. So incredibly important to ensure that safety is at the heart of any efforts that are framed in the sustainable transport space. The second point, I think, too, just to say, is that we do have this, we're in the decade of action for road safety right now, and we don't need to recreate the wheel when it comes to sort of thinking about safety and sustainability. We have a global plan that is very clear about sort of guiding efforts towards land use planning and mode shift, safer roads, safer vehicles, safer road use, and post-crash care. And unlike the sustainable transport decade, it sets out very clear performance indicators and targets. So those two things I would start with as a principal approach. But then to say, I think there's all sorts of fantastic opportunities to weave road safety into efforts on sustainable transport, and we heard about that in the previous session on equity. I'll just give you one quick case study. On the amazing LinkedIn today, I saw a fantastic article from Mr. Santosh, I say Longathan. He told this great story about in Chennai, in the old metropolitan area, there is 4 million trips made every single day by foot, so people walking, and further 4 million trips made by public transport. And by definition, those people taking public transport are going to be walking as well. So about 8 million trips every single day, huge numbers. And he said when the cyclone recently was approaching Chennai, what they were able to do is increase the public transport, the frequency of the trains, in order to help people move around more quickly, knowing that this natural disaster was coming. So sort of an example of a quite resilient network in a way. But the key thing that happened was obviously people were not able to walk to the station safely because the sidewalks are in poor condition. They get flooded and they become dangerous. So by ensuring that we have safe pedestrian access, as just one example, to metro stations, we can ensure those metro systems get sort of used optimally as well. And I think with every single development that happens, whether it's a metro system being developed or a hospital being built or a power station, they all have a road safety footprint. And I think it's incredibly important that every time we're developing, doing some sort of developing, we're thinking about how that safety footprint is being managed in a sustainable way.
Thank you, Greg, for helping us, kind of think across the different kind of, UN decades. And, you are correct that we have a very effective framework to work with. Dmitry, I'm going to offer you an opportunity to perhaps kind of build on that response and maybe add another angle. I mean, we've heard obviously about some of the, the engineering measures that you've helped develop throughout the Caucasus and Central Asia. But I think we need to talk about maybe the skills or the governance gap. And I know that this is a topic that East has been addressing as well. And can you tell us a little bit more about those and maybe what kind of gaps today, soft gaps in this case, prevent countries from turning good intentions and sometimes good data when they have it into systemic safety and health improvements?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a crucial question where this gap happens, and obviously, through our work, we see very engaged local communities and local NGOs, and they're really driving force of a change. So I suppose getting that bridge to the local governments and trying to find ways how to convince them to be more proactive and to, like I said in my presentation, what's stopping them from designing streets for all road users, not just for vehicles, and not building highways to get from A to B in the most fast and convenient ways. So that's a very good question, and hopefully, whether it's within the ongoing Decade of Action on Road Safety or UN Decade on Sustainable Transport, these questions can be addressed. But what we think is that very often in low and middle income countries, enforcement alone doesn't really work. So it has to be combined with various elements on top of that. And that we would like to explore is actually local tools and local technologies and local capabilities. Whether it's a local street redesign, like I showed you in my presentation, or it's community-led monitoring, right, where parents and active groups just go out on the street and collect data, which then can be used to map those black spots and dangerous crossings, or simple, training for the local engineers. And I know Greg and IRAP team is doing a lot of that work, just strengthening local capabilities. I think all this solution can really create safer environment and bring us closer to the overall goal of achieving the global target. So these small steps could really patch up that gap in between local communities trying to solve the problem and local authorities who sometimes don't have enough tools to listen and to understand why this is important to implement.
Thank you for that, Dmitry. You just mentioned community-led approaches, and I'd like to stick to that topic with two of our other panelists, Patrick and Youssef, particularly in the context of speed management, speed enforcement. We know this is a huge challenge in low and middle income countries. Enforcement capacity obviously stretched. Informal modes sometimes dominate mobility. So, based on your work and your insights, perhaps starting with you, Patrick, if you could tell us maybe about some of the locally developed or locally owned technologies, practices, or community approaches that are proving most effective in your view in shaping safer driving behavior, and what might make them acceptable and scalable more generally in the countries where the Global Alliance is represented.
Okay, thank you, Brendan. I think first of all, to echo what Greg has said, frameworks are there, and we know that frameworks are, they are very good frameworks. Even policies in these countries are there that exist. But what maybe really has been the most principal or primary work of the NGOs is to really, for example, bring these policies into action, because many governments, for example, in low and medium income countries, they are very good at making the policies, but they are not implemented, or they don't don't see the light of the day in terms of implementation. But what we are doing in terms of the technology in most of the countries, it varies from country to country depending on where our members are. But mostly when we see in low and medium income countries, what really drives change is listening to the community demands, community needs, more than producing a policy that does not resonate with the communities. So what we are looking for example, about speed, we have seen communities demanding for lower speeds, yet the government policy on speed is, for example, in the urban streets is more than 50 kilometers per hour. But communities demand lower speed. They may not know whether they want 30 or 25, but you find they are acting on themselves by blocking the roads or erecting informal speed humps, thus galvanizing the government to start thinking, was that policy on the urban speed really working for our community? So this what we are seeing is that community-led sort of demands, if they are captured well, they are able to inform policies. And that's how we have managed to actually have speed reduction in countries like Tunisia, Chile, Uganda, and all these countries, based on the fact that there is a good collaboration, or rather communication and cooperation between what is coming from the communities and what is the policy from the government.
Thank you for that. And still on speed, I'll invite Youssef perhaps to chip in as well. And perhaps, you challenged us a little earlier with challenged our conventional thinking in terms of course, the kind of speed excesses that we hear about. It's the 200, 250 kilometers, on the motorways, not so much the 5-10 kilometer kind of everyday kind of speed violations. And nonetheless, we know, and the safe system tells us, that these are not acceptable either. Vetronic has obviously deployed their systems all around the world. And can you tell us a little bit about maybe what you're looking for in a country where you're deploying these systems, in terms perhaps of prerequisites or perhaps enablers that will ensure that the systems you're deploying are effective, that they're accepted by the communities that you work with?
Yeah, sure. Let's say that the most realistic and cost-effective opportunity for industry today is to deliver deployable, data-driven safety solution that cities can adopt immediately without having an heavy infrastructure upgrade. So first, a smart speed management system remains the fastest to cut fatalities. This is very clear. Modern AI, speed cameras, low power radars, and average speed systems are affordable, easy to install, and proven to reduce deaths by almost 70%. And this is size, this is numbers that we have today. And this is the single highest impact intervention cities can deploy right now. Yeah, second, the industry can provide modular enforcement tools that address, for example, seatbelts or distracted driving and dangerous overtaking using existing poles or and power. So this plug and play systems help agencies scale enforcement even with a limited resources. So cities benefit from simple integrated data platforms that combine crash data, hospital data, and enforcement information from the police, for example. Not required for smart city transformation. It just cloud dashboards that highlight so his high risk corridors and guide low cost intervention. So in short, smart speed management, model enforcement or integrated data and rapid audits are the most deployable and affordable tools industry can deliver today to make roads safer and healthier.
Thank you very much for that, Yusuf. And my final question will of course go to Lorna. So ASIN, as we know, works at the intersection of the road and the automotive industries, which provides you with, I think, for some very kind of unique insights. What do you see as the most kind of realistic pathways to, I guess, deploy the type of predictive analytics, that we saw in your presentation, perhaps faster than is the case today? And how can we put these technologies in the hands of professionals assessing road risks, such as IRAP surveyors, why not, for maximum impact? And I'll note that you also received a question, and perhaps which you can address separately, regarding the automotive industry, which is itself evolving rapidly, which is of course challenging the way we think about road design, road maintenance, etc. And how can we keep pace with this transformation? Perhaps you have some insights you'd like to share on that as well.
Yeah, lots of questions, thank you, and complex issues, of course. So I'm just going to give my opinions here. But first of all, you asked me about the pathway to integrating such a technology that's now available and unfortunately not available in all countries, because we're talking about insights based on connected vehicles. So it's very, very high take up now of connected vehicles in the EU, thanks to legislation that's been in place since 2018 that obliges all new cars that are built to be connected. So there is a wealth of data in a lot of countries now. My advice normally is don't be afraid. Some people were coming to us at the beginning, don't bury us in data, and fully understand that. So what we want to do is be flexible and work together with road authorities. And some people like to have a lot of raw data because they have data scientists in their teams. So they're inquisitive and they like to analyze it themselves. But other people are like, don't bury us in data. We need you to help us to whittle down that data into manageable, useful insights. So my advice would be, don't be scared to get started, because we can start in a very simple way and already get some interesting insights on how people are driving on your networks. Would you like me to share some thoughts on the second question?
Why not, indeed? How must we brace as a sector for the arrival of connected and autonomous vehicles? I guess it was kind of the underlying question here.
I guess so. I was about keeping pace, wasn't it, in infrastructure with regards to advances in automotive. And again, it's a really good question, really tricky topic. So I don't claim to have answers to all of those questions. But just for speaking from my experience, I think it. First of all, I'd like to say I think it's both ways. So if we look at the safe system, we know that drivers make mistakes. Well, we know that roads aren't perfect as well. So, and infrastructures aren't perfect as well. So it's also up to automotive to be designing based on the realities of infrastructure, as well as infrastructure trying to develop safer roads to create that safe environment for connected and autonomous vehicles. So it is about a two-way, I think, collaboration. But also, I think where it's starting to work best, of course, is where it starts from the top, with government policy, budgets being made available for test beds for autonomous vehicles. So I think that's the only way it can really come together, country-wide or region-wide.
Thank you very much. And as you highlighted, we challenged you with a relatively complex question. This is one, actually. There are a number of European research projects, some of which IRF is involved in, that are spending many months trying to kind of answer this precise question.
I'm sure you could have a much better insight than me. But
I'm not sure we do, actually. But thank you Thank you for that. We're going to offer speakers, I think, one last round, unless I see more questions come in. And really on the theme of, well, we have, as Greg recalled, we have a UN decade of action. We have a target to cut fatalities by 50% against 2019 baseline, I believe. And we have 4 years to achieve this. And maybe this might sound as a classical question, but I'm going to ask each of you perhaps to highlight one measure that they would like to see perhaps implemented on a much larger scale than today in the next 4 years. Greg, perhaps why don't we do this in the order we had you speak? Greg.
Yeah, I wish I could have more than one option. I'm going to give a couple of ones. I saw a fantastic presentation from the city of Bogota recently where they did traffic calming measures on arterial roads and got enormous reductions in deaths. And because it was infrastructure based, it was kind of self-enforcing, so they could target their police enforcement efforts at other roads. Hugely effective. I'm gonna jump in and say also ABS on motorcycles is critically important. I would encourage all countries to push for that as a requirement. And fake helmets as well. I would look to eradicate counterfeit and fake helmets from countries as well. So there's three, Brendan, that I would focus on.
Perfectly acceptable. And fake helmets are indeed a scourge throughout the developing world. I believe we had Patrick next.
Yes, thank you. And I'll also have three, but very quick ones. So I think from my perspective, we need to see, number one, a continued increase in investment on road safety from governments, because road safety has been relegated always at the lower side. And then secondly, we need to see more transparency and accountability on governments in terms of implementing the road safety policies. And I think that finally is a plea that all of you and all the governments and every partner involve NGOs in your work, because they are actually the oil that makes everything work together. Thank you.
Thank you. And as an NGO ourselves, I couldn't agree more with you. Dimitri, please.
Yes, well, following up the pattern of suggesting three, I would also say three things. And just to echo what Patrick just said, local partnerships and local expertise. So as I said, many cities and many countries, they already have very strong local NGOs and engineering communities. So these groups understand their streets better than any global organization or UN. So giving them a bigger role and empowering them could be really powerful move. Secondly, like I said as well in my presentation, and hopefully that came across, it's inclusive design. Just thinking about building new roads, not just for cars, not just for getting goods from A to B, but also vulnerable road users, children, older people with disabilities. It's still a gap that is missing, so that is very important to address. And then the final perspective is not to forget, if we're having a UN decade of sustainable transport, not to forget the link between safe infrastructure, safe roads, and a climate action. So as we said, when cities and streets become safer, people walk more, they use less cars, and it sort of brings down reduced emissions. So that linkage could really help the road safety community to, gain more voice and more power on international scene.
Thank you for these insights, Dimitri. I think we had Yusuf next. If you'd like to come in with between 1 and 3 proposals, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, disruption become really a real concern today, and this is something we have to fight already at home. So let's just admit that majority of us, we become digitally addicted, and scrolling by night, it just delays the sleeping for the people at least 2 hours, and then people, they need to wake up on the next morning. They have again access to the media that can really affect their mood, and once they start driving, they lost their maturity while driving. This is something we have to fight ourselves, at home, and our children. And the second thing, we have to accelerate the adoption of self-driving cars. We have to make it easier. It's quite complicated, so I have been working with several car manufacturers. So have been promised it will be done by 2020, but so far it's not, and it's more likely it's going to take much longer than it is just because of the complicated bureaucracy. So that's something we have to push to make it faster, and then I think we will get there, I'm pretty sure.
Thank you. And Lorna, please do come in with final closing thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts, I'd say, or we talked about budgets. I mean, we know that budgets are very restricted for road safety, but I'd say because we know they're restricted, let's try and do more analysis so that we're making sure that we are putting our limited resources into the best areas. So whether it be, obviously IRAP is a fantastic tool. So that's what I would say, measuring is knowing. Let's start by analyzing and measuring our measures. Measuring our measures doesn't make much sense. Measuring our improvements.
Yes, performance metrics, for instance.
Yes.
Before and after. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Lorna. Thank you indeed to all our panelists for the excellent contributions, and thank you everyone for participating, sometimes at this late hour for you. I think if there was one of the messages that we wanted to be sure that you took away from this session is that safety and sustainability are not competing agendas. Indeed, the two UN decades will work side by side. They do reinforce one another, whether we're talking about better design, better enforcement, or stronger community engagement, as we heard throughout today's panel. The solutions show a clear path towards roads that can be designed and managed to protect lives and strengthen public health at the same time. So on behalf of the International Road Federation, thank you for being part of this important discussion. We look forward to continuing these conversations throughout the conference and throughout, indeed, IRF programs worldwide. We are now coming to the end of day one of our 3-day conference. So just a reminder to be sure to sign in. We have many really insightful sessions taking place tomorrow in particular. We begin at 1 p.m. Geneva time with the Young Professionals Summit, and I'm sure some information is being shared as we speak in the chat. But for now, thank you again on behalf of all of us, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.